Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and we have a very special guest today with us, as we do every week, Rolf Peterson. Rolf, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Al. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was stoked when you came up to me at a job site and said, hey, I've been thinking about this and I'd love to come on and chat. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
So basically, our topic today is just going to be open range. We're just going to have a conversation, and we're just going to roll with it and see what comes out of it. And I'm blessed and grateful to have Dr. Mike with us again today.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah,
good to be here.
Almost starting to become a regular, right?
Yeah, it's kind of fun to see how this works.
I know. So Mel had some things come up business-wise, and she wasn't able to make it, and she reached out to me, and she goes, hey, is it going to cause you any problems? I'm like, no problems at all. And I reached out to my friend, Robin Sims, over at the Other Side Academy, and she goes, hey, my brother can come in for your afternoon show if you want. And I'm like, all right. So basically, I was just thinking that I would just have this conversation with Rolf, just him and I. And
well, I can just sit back and listen.
Again, what's crazy is I was telling Rolf before the show, I always get these ideas when I'm at the gym.
Yeah.
Things just seem to flow when I'm at the gym working out. And before I even saw you, I'm like, oh, hell, I wonder if Mike would be available. So that's why I hit you up when I saw you at the gym. And here you are. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
It's fun to be here and hear these conversations and hopefully contribute a little bit. In the process.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well,
Good to meet you, Rolf.
And you do contribute. With your background, Mike, and the knowledge that you have, especially with the mental health and things like that, you contribute a lot because it really helps me as well, with the times that you've been on the show, and even as when you were a guest on the show, some of the stuff that you shared really got those gears turning. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
All right. So, holy cow. Rolf, I know a little bit about you, from your bio, but
Sure.
Give our audience a little taste of who Rolf Peterson is.
Sure, I'd love to tell you that. Utah native, born and raised in Utah. I was born in Logan, and 4 days after I was born, I was adopted by Steve and Barbara, who were the only parents I've ever known. Then grew up in Salt Lake, specifically the Emigration Canyon area. My father was an architect and designed and built his home up in Emigration Canyon.
Wow.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. When I was 4, they adopted my sister, Sarah, and that is my immediate family. And for the most part, grew up on the East Bench of Salt Lake my whole life. Grew up in Emigration Canyon, attended my elementary school there, junior high as well, went to East High School.
Go Leopards.
That's right, yeah.
Miners, go Miners.
Did have a religious influence, like a lot of people in Utah do. Grew up LDS. It wasn't a strict or a very dedicated theme at our house, but we definitely went to church. Did serve an LDS mission in Sydney, Australia, from 89 to 91.
I don't hear the accent. Did you pick up the accent?
It's faded away.
Too bad.
When I came home from that, I wanted so badly to have the accent. I thought it would make me more appealing to the opposite sex.
Yeah,
definitely.
Crocodile Dundee kind of.
Good eye, man. You got it right.
There you go.
I love it.
Yeah.
We should have Laban here. He's from New Zealand, and he has that accent.
Oh, yeah. I lived with a lot of Kiwis and a lot of Polynesians. And even though at this current time in my life, that affiliation I'm not part of, still my time in Australia was a big part of my life, and I loved it. Learned a lot about just being independent and becoming myself, and I don't regret that a bit at all. It was fun. And then after that, returned home, attended the University of Utah, where I studied commercial recreation. And while I was studying that, worked at Deer Valley for about 10 years, starting up the bottom, and then went into management positions. And did that for a long time. And as we get into it a little bit further, I was in the restaurant industry with them. That's where I managed things. And as can happen a lot of the times in the restaurant industry, that's really opened up the floodgates on my addiction. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But then I mentioned my father was an architect, and he had a smaller firm that then grew to become one of the largest firms in Salt Lake. And so with his influence, as I left Deer Valley in the mid-90s and looked for other things, with all of his connections, got into construction and eventually got my general contractor's license, started my own company. And as far as my professional life, that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. Al, that's how you and I met.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so that's really just a brief history that gets me to this point. Other than when I lived in Australia, I've lived in Utah my entire life.
Wow.
It's not a bad place to live. I'm curious, did you bump into Leif Erikson very often up at Deer Valley?
Stein Erikson?
Stein Erikson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I was there, I started in Deer Valley in '88, and it was obviously big and very influential, but it was smaller then, and so we'd see Stein at all the company parties, and yeah, he was around, and I met him a few times.
Yeah. I used to ski up there once in a while, and I'd see him. He was up there a lot because I wasn't up there very much, but I would still see him once in a while, and it was beautiful just watching him ski. He had such finesse.
Yeah,
he had a style where
else.
you could pick him out from 300 yards away. I mean, there was the Stein style. That's for sure.
I've stayed in that hotel, the Stein
The
Erikson.
Stein
It's
quite a
years
place.
ago. I think, and it was during the off season. It was like $350 a night.
Yeah.
At that time, and that was probably in the 90s, so I'm sure it's
You'd be
more
lucky
than
to
that
get
right now.
the janitor's closet for
Yeah,
that
the
price
janitor,
nowadays.
right. Sleep with the mop bucket.
That's right.
And it's crazy. So Emigration Canyon, my parents, we lived on 8th South and 7th East.
All right. So we were neighbors.
Yeah,
more or
pretty
less.
much.
That's interesting.
Pretty much. And
I know that neighborhood.
my dad was, he grew up, both my mom and dad grew up in Kenilworth, coal mining town just up from Helper and outside of Price area.
Yeah.
Always
Cool.
into the hunting and stuff like that. So every year, right before the bow hunt would start, there was no room to practice shooting your bow in the backyard right off of 8 South. So my dad, I would always go up with my dad up Emigration Canyon. And I still, every time I drive up there, so like if we're driving up to Steve's place, to do a drive, every time I drive up there, I always remember being in my dad's huge 57 Buick, the boat, and driving up there and him pulling his bow out of the trunk. And, I'd go out there and set up targets, and then he'd sit there for a long time. And
even now, you go up
shoot.
off the backside off a little mountain, and there's all kinds of people scoping
yeah.
and doing that because you can only bow hunt up there
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah, and they open it up from the time the bow hunt opens all the way till, I think, the end of the year. You can bow hunt up there.
I think so too.
Yeah, and there's
No,
some nice
that's
bucks
good
up
memories.
there.
No,
Yeah.
I loved growing up there. I mean, we had the river in my backyard, and as a kid, I mean, I was fortunate because I had two really good parents. I had a good sister, and my life, unlike a lot of people or some people, was really stable, and I had a loving home, had a great place to grow up where played in the river as a young kid and had motorcycles and rode all over the canyon as I grew up. And I was fortunate. I had a good life and had good people around me.
And I'm glad that you said that, Rolf, because a lot of people who get into addiction, and the majority, I would say, of society, and I was one of them, I'm just as flippin' guilty, they don't realize that addiction, it doesn't discriminate.
Absolutely
You can come
not.
from a loving home, a wealthy home, a poor home, a middle-class home, loving parents, no parent. It doesn't discriminate. And, I mean, a lot of our guests have come from broken homes and different things that had happened. But we've also had quite a few guests that have come on and said, look, man, my home life as a child was awesome. There was a lot of love in my family and a lot of care, and we loved one another and we did things together. So, again, that's another mission that we want to have on this show, is to get rid of the stigma of how people on the outside who have not been touched by addictions, let them know, man. It's just the people that you see, again, and you guys have heard me say this on the show many times, you just don't wake up one day and go, okay, you know what, I'm going to be a meth head.
Right.
Or I'm going to be addicted to crack or whatever it may be, or I'm going to be an alcoholic. It just doesn't happen that way. And you said that you got into the restaurant business. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going, because I've worked with some people who have been in the restaurant business.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's as prominent as it is nowadays or back then as it is nowadays. But they told me, holy cow, man, you work your ass off in the restaurant business. It's a tough business, but you party your ass off too. And
every shift.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've heard. They said the drug, especially the cocaine, and that was back in the 80s into the 90s. They're like, man, the cocaine that comes through these restaurants, and you're hopping.
Wow.
And
we saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, addiction certainly has no boundaries. I mean, it affects all types, all walks of life.
Yeah.
It's it has the ability to get us all.
I think some people are better able to hide it, perhaps, if they have the resources to hide it, and the social structure where they can kind of, put up the walls so people don't know what's going on. But I agree. It's there's no group in society that's immune to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said when you were talking that was kind of the start for you, right?
Well, I'll go into that a little bit more. So the start for me, I started quite young. I had, like I mentioned, had the religious influence in my life. And even as a younger person, 12, 13, I didn't necessarily agree with that. And so I think I thought, how can I show that this is not who I want to be? And the easiest way to show that was to have a beer. And so I started drinking beer and smoking pot 12, 13 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's usually when people start, about that age, yeah. And
it was funny, and I know this has a little connection. I mentioned that I had a good, loving home, and I do still have great parents. Right about that same time, my parents had marital problems and began to split. So, a little bit of turmoil in the water. Yeah. What am I going to do to rebel against that? So that certainly wasn't the cause. I know that I had a desire to drink because it sounded fun to me. It sounded fun. And growing up in Emigration Canyon in the 80s, it's a little different than it is now. For those of you that are familiar with Emigration Canyon now, there wasn't the wealth that was up there then. It was kind of the obscure and the hippies, and there was a lot of marijuana that was readily available. I mean, I had friends whose fathers grew it on the hillside in Emigration Canyon, and we could hike up and steal some of his stash when we were daring enough.
Yeah.
But so I dabbled with alcohol and marijuana as all through my teens. Drank a lot in high school, and definitely not knowing that I had an issue was definitely on the road to having a problem. And this is something that I think isn't expressed a lot to the youth. Is we're told, don't drink because your brain's not developed yet, which is true. But one thing that I found that really affected me a lot, unlike adults who start later on in life, there's a different reason why you drink. You go down, you have dinner, you have a nice steak dinner, and you have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And it's social. When you start as a young person, there's one reason why you drink. That's to feel the effects and to get messed up.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that enough over time, which I did, you establish that habit. And that habit is you're not doing it socially. The reason that you're drinking is to get messed up. And by the time I was 18, that was already in my system. That's who I was. So started early, and then had the 2-year reprieve for the most part. I still drank while I was in Australia. I mean, again, I went to Australia not because I believed in the cause, but because I wasn't ready to go to college yet. I had a lot of friends that were doing it. To me, it sounded like,
why not?
A vacation.
Yeah.
Nice adventure.
A 2-year vacation.
And I got to go to Australia. I wasn't going to central Utah.
Yeah.
I got a great place to go. Why not? And so my addiction.
Nothing against Central Utah. No.
Of course not. But again, it was.
I spent time there.
It was more exciting than going a few hours away.
Yeah.
I was going halfway around the world. I was meeting different cultures. It was extremely exciting, and I was happy to go. And but like I mentioned, my addiction, because my love for alcohol, which has been my vice. I did try a lot of drugs through my life, but alcohol was my vice. And then when I came home, I went back to Deer Valley. I did work at Deer Valley for a season before I went to Australia. The day that I came home, I had a job back up there again, and I've been skiing since I was 5. That's one of my great passions. And even today and back when I was doing it, alcoholism or alcohol, marijuana, and skiing go hand in hand, you know.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days. We were always going off into the trees to smoke one.
Yeah, smoke one. And I can remember friends that I'd ski with. We had, back when you could still get mini bottles in Utah, mini bottles of Finlandia in your ski jacket. And as we were skiing down through the moguls, you could hear the mini bottles clinking back and forth. And it's so funny because at that point in your life, you're not thinking that what you're doing is a problem.
Yeah.
You're thinking it's fun, and you're having a good time, and you're experiencing life.
You know, and that's the thing. I was just talking with somebody a couple days ago. That's how it is with alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, it's different from the other drugs. You know, the meth and the cocaine and different things like that. With alcohol, we almost glorify it, if that's a word, I guess. You know, because
well, look at the commercials that are on TV.
Well, yeah,
absolutely, it glorifies it.
You know, and I remember there wasn't a lot of drinking in the family. My grandparents never drank. Matter of fact, my dad's dad was a bishop. Mm-hmm. He grew up in a really strict LDS home. Mm-hmm. But my dad drank. And, you know, there was only a certain time in his life where he was really pounding the beers, you know, putting a 12-pack away every single day. But then he got to where he got himself out of that. And there's a lot of things that happened, apparently, that I did not see. Mm-hmm. But I do remember, though, back in the days when I was partying out of high school, or even going to kegs at high school and bonfires and stuff where people are offering you shots, you know, and it's like, you're a pussy if you just don't do this. You know, I mean, I'll drink you under the table. It's
big
like
time social pressure.
I'm a man because I can drink a shitload of alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like
my beer bong holds 10. Yours only holds 6.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so it's like you were proud of yourself if you could drink a half a fifth of whiskey right out of the bottle straight and hold your own. Of course, you paid for it the next day. You know, I remember some of those times where I woke up and my chin was just freaking sore and bruised because I was hovering over the toilet and I kept passing out and hitting my chin on it.
Such fun.
That's like,
that's fun.
Why am I doing this, right?
Right?
Yeah, it's like, why am I doing this to myself? Yeah. You know, but again, that's how we look at it. And I've known people in my life to where they will not pick a restaurant to go out and eat at if it doesn't serve alcohol. Because you have to have that alcohol to sit down and socialize and have a good time.
I used to feel that way.
You know, and I was the same way, yeah. And so, especially, with that alcohol, we just have a tendency to glamorize it more than really what it is. And I guess maybe I kind of have a pet peeve on it a little bit more nowadays because of my wife's battle with her alcoholism. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, when we first started dating, we social drank every weekend. We would have either some of her friends over, or I was introducing to some of my friends, and we'd play cards or some kind of game or whatever, and would have our drinks. We never got hammered. We got enough to where we just got a little bit of a buzz where we're having a good time, and really before we even got our little buzz, we were already having a good time. But yet we felt like we had to have that alcohol there for us to really make the evening lots of fun. And I would have never, ever thought that when life really got hard for my wife and I, that would become her savior, basically, where she had to have it, you know, just to get herself through the day.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I totally understand that. And went through that for 20 or 30 years where not only did you feel that it wasn't a fun party if the alcohol wasn't there, but I felt in myself that I'm not going to be the fun guy. I'm not going to be the party guy unless I have a few in me. It was necessary for me to be on. I had to have some alcohol in me.
Yeah. Yeah, one of our guests that came on over a year ago, and he has his own podcast, Todd Sylvester, and he works for Wasatch Recovery. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal guy, and he wrote a book called I Am Recovered, and he basically states that in his book. He didn't grow up in a religious home. Religion wasn't even spoke about. Mm-hmm. And as he got older and he started getting into the alcohol and the drinking, he started realizing, oh my gosh, man, everybody loves me when I'm drinking this stuff. I'm the life of the party.
What's funny about that too, and this is just me personally, but sorry if I interrupted you.
No, not at all.
It was a great point, and I had to get sober to realize this. I thought that I was the life of the party when I really got going and I was drunk. And I thought I was funny. I thought everybody loved me. Only to realize, once you sober up, you were kind of a fool and a pain in the ass. And everybody was just dealing with you. Yeah. But I thought I was there, and everybody thought that I was funny. To only realize once I see life through different eyes that it wasn't that funny, and you have to have a sober mind to realize that. Yeah, to open it up. Yeah, it got to where I didn't even want to go anywhere with my wife. No concerts, no nothing. Because my night turned into a babysitting night. Totally. Because I had to make sure I had to keep my eye on her, and you should get to where she would just get so freaking hammered. And again, where she thought, she was funny and having a great time, where basically people were just like, just get the hell out of my face and leave me alone. Yeah. It's crazy. And as it really gets, as I really got deep into my addiction the last 10 years or so, it wasn't going to a party and having a few beers or a glass of wine. It was knowing that in order for me to have what I want, I had that fifth of vodka out in the garage. And before we left, I needed to go and drink a third of that. Yeah. So that when I got to the party, I could just have just a few beers, but I could be where I wanted to be without looking like a complete lush, even though I was, in front of everybody. So it's you get to that point where it's not a desire, you feel that it's a need. You have to have it to function. And I mean, it's that way with all types of substance. It's a chemical addiction, and your body craves it to function. Yeah, that dopamine hits. Totally. Because it was the same way for me. I've shared a few times on the show that with having the job that I had, my Fridays and Saturdays was cocaine and drinking. Mm-hmm. And the wife didn't even know I was even doing it. I do remember at times we couldn't go to a concert if I didn't have it, and I'd always make sure that my wife didn't know, but I had it, and I'd be able to put it in whatever I needed to put in, and anytime I had a chance to go get me another beer, I was in the bathroom doing what I needed to do and get my beer and come out and find a way to hide it. Pound the 2 beers again, and I felt that same thing. I could not go to a concert and have fun unless I had this with me. Yeah.
So I'm curious, what prompted you to make a change?
Life. I mean, seriously, it just got to the point. Well, okay, losing my job of 24 years, that frickin' opened my eyes.
That can wake you up. Because
of your addiction?
Yeah, because I failed a drug test.
Got it.
Now if I really do believe if the owner was still the owner of the business at the time, I probably would have got a slap on the wrist and probably would have been suspended for a week or whatever and brought back in and maybe had to do mandatory testing. I don't know, but
you didn't feel it at the time, but it's a good thing it didn't turn out that way.
Well, and what's crazy, and Mike, I think you've heard me say this, is, it was getting to the point on the weekends where my wife and I would have friends and parties and come over, because I had my garage set up like a man cave. I had the dartboard and the refrigerator full of booze and the stereo and the TV, and we'd sit out in the garage and play darts until 3:00 in the morning. Right. And I remember times going in the restroom. I always went into our master bathroom and falling over one day, landing in the tub, still having my tool in my hand and laying there in the tub, and my wife and her friend coming in. And I just remember looking in the mirror going, what am I doing? Yeah. what the hell am I doing? You know, and I, as a spiritual guy, I kept asking God, man, you got to help me. You got to help me, because I'm heading down the wrong path, even though it's only 2 days a week, but it's every weekend. And I've been doing it every weekend for years. And he helped me. I lost my freaking job.
So you could look down the path and see where you were headed.
Yeah, I could look down, and I mean, I stopped everything. I stopped everything at that
Good.
time. I even stopped drinking.
Yeah.
And so it's like I was up here and my wife was down here, and then it's just like overnight,
Yeah.
she went up here, and then of course she escalated it to a whole different level. You know, so
I like
yeah,
what you said, Al. My experience was similar. In you know, you said what changed. Mine wasn't an overnight. I didn't lose a job. I fortunately or unfortunately, I never had that moment that stopped me in my tracks. But I had I would guess for about 10 years, between my mid-30s to my mid-40s, I didn't like the person that I was, you know. And so many times I'd change. Okay, if I can just not drink vodka by myself in the garage, if I can just have beer and wine, I can fix this, you know. That's a typical story with alcoholics is, I'm only going to drink beer, I'm only going to drink wine. And how often does that work? Well, for me, it never did. And for 10 years, you'd start out for a week or two, and, well, that's good, I got this under control, and then you're out in the garage drinking vodka by yourself again. And so I battled it back and forth, thinking that I could just help myself for 10 years. And like you just said, you saw yourself in the mirror. I finally got help, went through a 12-step program when I was miserable. And I knew that what was making me miserable was the substances that I was putting in my body. You know, I was fortunate enough to be able to see that. And because I'd been trying it for 10 years on my own, I knew that I needed something outside of myself to help. And my sobriety date was October 8th of 2013. I was actually in Florida, in the Keys, partying my ass off. I mean, in
like
Florida they have the hurricane doors where you can, you know, it's there for a reason so the floods don't come in. I remember just being wasted, tripping over one of those. I'm here on this great vacation down with friends that have invited us to their house in the Keys. Trip on that. The first night I'm there, I think I broke my nose, bled all over their house. I mean, I've done things like that countless times. But there was something about that night, as I was lying in bed, my wife was pissed off because I'd embarrassed her again. You know, I said, this is it. And when we go home from here, that's it. And I had to get the help. Again, went through the 12-step program, had a home group in Park City, met a bunch of wonderful people that really saved my life. I don't think I'd be here if I hadn't met those people. And the last 9 years have been completely different. There's a sober mind. While life's not perfect being sober,
Sure.
it's not. It's still really hard. But it forces you to face your emotions and deal with them. And it's refreshing and rewarding because for me, it's something that I hadn't done for 35 years. You know, dealing with joy, with pain, with all the things that life offers, just the raw emotions.
Yeah.
And so as I got to sample that, for me, that was so refreshing and new. That really helped me during my first 6 months of sobriety to feel life again, you know?
So the 12-step program was pretty supportive and helpful to you.
It was, and I had kind of an unorthodox style. I went in thinking, I'm going to go and just sit in the back row and listen to these meetings. And
I'm sure nobody else has thought that.
No, I'm the first one. And so I actually did that for my first 3 years. And I'd participate and I'd talk there, but I didn't have a sponsor and I didn't do the things that traditionally you would do. I obviously went on to do that, which was a great help because I learned so much about myself, some of the true reasons that I was addicted to alcohol. You know, I always just thought, I'm a party guy. The only reason I'm addicted to alcohol is because I like to party.
Yeah.
I went quite a bit deeper than that. I was fortunate to be able to learn that about myself. and to realize what I was masking, what I was hiding, and to deal with that with a sober mind. It's not easy to do, but as you can get to that moment of clarity and say, like, for me, one of the things that is hard for me is I'm a people pleaser. I like everybody to be happy. I hate when people are upset or disappointed with me. So to deal with that, if someone I thought was not totally happy with me, I would drink. And of course I'd drink when things were good, I'd drink when things were bad. But to be able to learn that and to talk with others about it that were going through the same thing that I was, and realize that was very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you've got a grip on it. That's encouraging to.
I do today.
Yeah. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Just one thought quickly. I remember years ago, quite a few years ago, sitting in I think it was the Browning Auditorium at the university, which was where we had first and second year classes for medical school. And one of my teachers at the time said, if you understand alcohol and all the ways that it can affect people, you will have a pretty good handle on medicine. You'll understand.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was, because I've reflected on that, but alcohol has such wide-ranging effects. It obviously affects your acute, your immediate cognitive functioning and how your brain works. It affects later on how your brain works as well. Even after you sober up, it can linger for quite a while. Mm-hmm. It can affect your heart. It obviously can affect your liver. I mean, I remember working at the Veterans Hospital with these end-stage alcoholics, people who finally had given it up, but their liver was already shot, and they were either waiting to die or waiting for a liver transplant, and their bodies were just really messed up.
Oh, yeah.
They'd have the little skinny legs and the big bellies the bellies were not fat. The bellies were
swollen.
It's full of fluid because your liver doesn't handle it right, so it just accumulates. It's called ascites is the word for that, and we'd go in there and drain off a few quarts of that every once in a while with these guys and try to make them more comfortable. But it has such wide-ranging effects, and certainly the psychiatric effects of alcohol, how it affects relationships and mood and other things. It just really is far-reaching.
That's a great point. I'd like to expand on that a little bit,
because
it was the moment when I think my sobriety really kicked in. It was my one big aha moment. My wife was always supportive, proud, things like that. But at the time when I first sobered up, my son was about, he would have been about 9. I never thought my alcoholism affected him. I mean, I can remember coming home at night, getting drunk, reading stories to him. There were times when I passed out or fell asleep while I was reading to him, but I never thought that he noticed. I just thought, I'm a good dad, I'm there for him. But I had been about 5 months sober, and my son was 9 at the time, and he came up to me in the hall as I was saying goodnight to him. He said, Dad, I really like you a lot better since you quit drinking.
Holy cow. Wow.
I had no idea that he had a way to even distinguish one from the other. But when he told me that was like, I'm in this to the end. Because you don't realize how everybody else perceives you as a active alcoholic.
Yeah.
And for a 9-year-old, my son, who's one of the 2 people that mean more to me than anyone in this world, said that to me. Man, that was powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Kids can be really perceptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it is crazy how the alcohol and everything can change you. And Rolf, you were talking about here, I want to touch on this just a little bit before we go to a commercial break. Just how life changes so much, and you don't realize that it's actually happening, because I watch so much with my wife, and her sponsor was a guest on our show, and she was telling a story that she's going to her granddaughter's birthday party, and of course she had to have a few nips, you know, before she went to her granddaughter's birthday party. And you know, she's like, yeah, I'm hiding it. No one's going to know, blah, blah,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. Well, someone took a video, and she ended up seeing that video, and she was like, that's
not good.
That's how I frickin' act. You know, she saw things totally different.
Yeah, you don't perceive yourself.
Yeah, you know,
that way.
and you think that you're getting by when really you're not. And society, and I just believe this in my own true heart, society has molded us to where we are not supposed to feel our feelings. You know, and you were saying that when you stopped, you were doing it raw. Right? You started feeling the happiness, the sadness, the anger, life, everything that life throws at you. You know, it's like sometimes I picture it as like when we're kids and you build your snow wall, and you know, you're going to make sure you hit your buddy with the snowball. You're having snowball fights, but what do you do beforehand, man? You frickin' make as many snowballs as you possibly can, so you can just keep chucking them and chucking them. That's what life does to us. You know, it's constantly throwing snowballs at us.
Yep.
Sure.
But society says, no, you're not supposed to feel sad. So we're going to have recreation drugs for you, or we're going to have prescription drugs for you, so you don't have to feel these feelings.
Right. You should
You
just
know?
feel good all the time.
Yeah, just feel good
That's
all the
normal.
time. You know, and again, I'm
nice.
not knocking prescription drugs, because there are a lot there that help people.
Absolutely.
It helps them with a lot of different things. So I'm not knocking them. It's just, I think society has gotten, because I know of people who will put those down on the streets who are meth addicts, coke addicts, heroin addicts, whatever. But, you know, they take 10 or 12 prescription drugs, and it's okay.
Right.
Is it okay? You're doing the same thing they're doing, really.
Well,
You're just
if
not
it's-
living on the streets, but you're still numbing yourself so you don't have to feel something. That's exactly what's going on down there. So why can we not accept? Why is it so hard for us to accept as human beings what life throws at us? You know, there's times when things get tough. We've had some things go on in our lives where I'm like, holy shit, yeah, I'd love to go to the liquor store right now and go buy me a fifth of whiskey and
Oh, for sure.
just kick back and have some drinks, just to frickin' chill and let stuff
Just
go.
to turn it off. I
just to
do
shut
miss
it off.
having the
Yeah.
off switch.
Yeah.
You know? You have to learn that a sober life is the light switch is on all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, there really is.
And there are other ways
Yeah.
to turn that off.
Oh,
I mean, I think
absolutely.
like you go into
Yes.
the gym every day or almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really a release where you can forget about everything else. And the exercise, the physical activity really does do a lot to do. It does a lot more than just
Oh,
for
yeah.
your heart. It does a lot for your brain as well.
Yeah.
And for your psyche and for your
It
mood.
sure does. Since I've sobered up, my son was a big mountain bike rider. I became one of the coaches on his high school team, and then my wife became a coach, and so that's something that we do 3-4 times a week now.
Great.
And that's because, not just because it's fun, but because it's necessary. Man, if I'm having a hard day at work, which I normally would have picked up a pint of vodka to take care of, now I go and you have to find, in order to be sober, you have to find other ways to turn the noise off. And that's, I think, exactly what you were saying,
Yeah.
Dr. Mike, is you need to find the releases to deal with life, because life's a bitch sometimes. It is.
It is. I can't argue against that.
Yeah.
I think life is wonderful, but part of the thing that makes it wonderful is that we do face these challenges.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer, and I really like everything to be nice and smooth in my life, but I also believe that if we could remove all the trials that we have in life, all the challenges, all the things that frustrate us, our lives would not have very much meaning or satisfaction. I think our capacity to experience joy and pleasure in life actually is enhanced by facing some of the challenges that
Yeah.
we have. You remove the
Good
challenges, you remove the hardships, you also remove the potential for satisfaction and joy.
Joy, absolutely.
And that's not just my attitude. There's been some good, I can't cite all the articles that have been written about that, but there have been some real academics taking a look at that. And sometime maybe we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about
We have
that. Yeah.
on the mountain bike team that we coach. We've got 65 athletes on our team, And we have, at the end of every practice, we have our mantras and mottos, our M&Ms. And one of the ones that we say a lot of the time at the end of practice is, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
Because the rides that we're going on are extremely hard, and we're trying to teach the kids that. But it's not only about riding your bike, it's dealing how to deal with
life.
hard things through your life.
Yeah.
And if you can establish a pattern for that, life's a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Well, and how the hell are we supposed to grow? I mean, seriously, right? God gives us these troubled times and these hard times and difficult times to grow. I mean, that's what makes us stronger as individuals. I mean, some of the stuff I go back and I look at in my life that I thought was really tough, being with a spouse who's an alcoholic, holy crap, that
Not a
freaking
cakewalk.
challenged me at every flippin' angle. You know, like my buddy JD said, I became addicted to her addiction. And I was 100%. It took over my life. And to have something like that just consume you so much. However, a blessing has come out of it because now it's helped me become even a better person and a stronger person.
Yeah, I
because
believe
now
that.
I'm like, man, if I can make it through this, I mean, there's other tough shit that's going to happen in my life. I know it's just how life is. However, right now, that's the peak. If I made it through that, I should be able to make it through a lot of other things. So,
No, I agree with you. I mean, it's funny but I've said this a lot of times since I've been sober. I'm grateful that I was an alcoholic.
I've heard
because
that.
I had to get through that, and I am who I am today because I
Yeah.
had to overcome that.
Yeah,
And without that, I'd be someone else.
yeah,
One of the things I think is really nice, too, about both of you is your compassion for others. Your willingness to look at others a little less judgmentally than you might have otherwise had you not
Totally.
traveled down that road.
Yeah.
So rather than looking down on people, you maybe look at them wondering how you can help them. And I
Yeah.
think that's great. I think that's progress.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You. You know, and that's another reason for this show. You know, I was hoping, I don't know how many times we've probably said it here on this show, that if we can help just one person, man, it's worth it.
Yep.
You know, it's worth it. And yeah, we probably need to stop for a commercial break, but I'm going to say this, you know, and my wife right now, she's been in training all week to be certified as a peer support specialist.
Great.
You know, so
That's
now
awesome.
none of this would be happening if it wasn't for her addiction. And when you said that, Rolf, you know, that you're grateful you're an alcoholic, I tell the story on this show quite a bit of a guy that got up and got his 10 or 15 year chit and said, I thank God every day for making me an alcoholic. And the first time I heard it, I did. I leaned over to my wife and I'm like, that guy's effing nuts. Because why? At the end of his story, I understood. Now I really understand.
Right.
You know, I didn't understand fully at the time, but I do now. So, guys, stay with us. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the openness with our kids. And
Cool.
you touched base on it a little bit the first half of the show. You know, you've got all this stuff pounding in you, and then when you do try stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, it's not as bad. But I really do believe that our kids need to be talked to right now. You know,
Agreed.
especially in the junior high, because I would say pretty much every single guest we've had on this show all started their addiction. It all started right around the puberty time, around 12, 13, except for my buddy Jim. He started at 5 years old.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. First taste of alcohol at 5 years old, full-blown alcoholic by junior high.
wow.
Crazy. But anyway, guys, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account. And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer pre-packaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com, that's taffytown.com, to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Other Side Addiction. We are here with our guest, Rolf Peterson, and our guest co-host, Dr. Mike. So guys, thank you again for being here. Greatly appreciate it.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here.
Thanks.
Gosh, the first half of the show, again, was awesome, which I think I say that on every show because they are. And for some of you, if you're noticing the Lost Voices of Fentanyl, these signs behind us, the studio is covered in them. You're just not able to see them with the camera. But Brad did a show earlier on his Resilience Talk Network, and they were talking about it. And we just felt it was appropriate to leave the signs up because there are so many of our youth and loved ones who are losing their life due to fentanyl poisoning. Now, this is fentanyl poisoning, not the overdosing. It's because they have taken something that fentanyl has been put in. Them not knowing it. That's why they're calling it fentanyl poisoning. And it's getting worse. It's definitely getting worse. Yeah. And I really, really, really hope that our state or a government, somebody, and there are people out here who are doing everything they can to get the voices out there, but I really hope we start doing something about it, because I tell you what, the rate that this fentanyl poisoning is growing, it's like a wildfire. It's happening more and more and more. So, again, we just felt it was appropriate to leave these signs up. And I wish you guys could actually see all the faces that are on these posters, because we've got some over here and some over here. A lot of young people, again, are losing their lives, which is really crazy. And it's stupid. It shouldn't be happening. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so, right as we were getting ready to go to break, we wanted to touch base here on the second half about speaking with our kids. And in a way, I have a little bit of an issue with this, is I've reached out to some schools. I won't say which ones, but I've reached out to some schools around the valley to see if they would allow me to come in and talk about addiction. And principals don't want anything to do with it, which is crazy. And I know one of the head honchos for the Jordan School District, and I've talked to him years ago, and it wasn't about the addictions part of things, but some other stuff. And he told me that each individual school, it's up to the principal. It's not up to the district. It's up to the principal what they allow to come in, and it's just crazy, because I really do believe, and again, just because I've been around the addiction, that I think it's very, very important, not just in high school, but in junior high, to start hitting them in junior high, because that's when it seems like people who fall into the addiction, that's when it starts. You know, they start experimenting around that 12, 13, 14 year range. Mm-hmm. And some of us fall into it, some of us don't. But who wants to take the chance?
Right.
You know, I mean, I remember stealing some Boone's Farm wine out of my mom and dad's basement, you know, and putting it in a cough syrup bottle and taking it to school. And between classes, you and your buddies
I
are,
did the same thing.
you know, taking a few sips out of it and thinking it's great. And I did it once before gym, and I decided I'd never do that again. That's because I didn't feel very good after gym, after taking a few shots of wine. But, you know, and again, I was that same age. I was 11, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
So you touched base just briefly on it, Rolf. Again, we hear about the dangers of it, but yet we really don't understand, again, because we're still developing. I mean, we're still frickin' kids.
Yeah.
Babies, really. We take our first little sip of alcohol, and I thought the same thing. First time I drank a swig of beer, you know, and at first I'm like, oh, who the hell would want to drink this stuff? This is nasty.
Right.
You know, and then you try it again, and then you start acquiring a taste. Wine was a little different, you know, it's a little sweeter, and you're thinking, this is pretty good, and you get that little teeny
Hits you
kind
a
of
little
buzz,
quicker.
you know. It's
Yeah.
like the first time I took a chew, you know, put a pinch of Copenhagen between my lip and gum, and pretty soon it's like, whoa, you know, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really do believe we need to start teaching this stuff in school ASAP.
I agree with you, and I think that, you know, like looking back on my own experience, I was always taught about the dangers of drugs and alcohol, which is important to be educated on as well.
Mm-hmm.
But as I mentioned my son earlier, and he'll be 19 in January. We've had a lot of open, just honest conversations at our house about these things. That didn't happen in my house growing up. You know, we talked about why you don't do it, because the church says so, or because it's bad. But we were never told, or I was never told, you know what, I understand why you'd want to have a beer or smoke pot. It feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to let someone that's considering those things know that. I understand why you'd want to try that. It does feel good. It is fun. But, and that's where there's that nice transition.
Yeah.
You can't totally comprehend or understand where that fun can lead you. And I think a lot of the youth, as they're told about drugs and alcohol, it's only the warnings. But at the same time, you're getting the warnings, don't do it, you're told not to, but then you watch TV, and it's all the in-shape guys and the ladies in bikinis, and they're out of the lake, and they're drinking a beer.
Yeah.
That's true, that can happen. But if it's taken too far, it can ruin your life. And that's where I think openly talking about that there's multiple phases of what alcohol and drugs can do. And each drug is different, you know. And that's a whole other topic, but I think talking with the youth or adults who are thinking about trying drugs and alcohol, let them know, hey, I get it. It is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel good. But if you let that overwhelm your life, it can take you down a place that can destroy you.
Yeah. And usually, from what I've gathered from our guests and hearing their story, is by the time they realize it,
you're in trouble.
Pretty far down.
it's up to here
you're in
already.
trouble.
Right? Yeah.
Seems to me that we have some public service announcements and things on the radio that I hear about. Talk to your kids about alcohol and other things, and I have no argument with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with what you're saying, Rolf, that it's good to have that ability to talk to your family, to your kids about that. I think whatever we can do to strengthen and foster the family so that there's that feeling of trust. So if you have a kid that maybe wanders a little bit or trips or is curious, I mean, most kids are pretty curious about this stuff.
Yeah.
That they don't feel like they have to go all the way, that they can come back and still maintain that relationship with their parents and get some good counsel and know that, you know, there's a safe environment there at home and they have parents that are wanting the very best for them. And I think having that kind of environment where the kid is safe and can talk about it.
That's
where
exactly what I'm going through right now. I don't know if I mentioned that my son He's living in the dorms his freshman year at the University of Utah. He's trying things. He is.
Yeah.
It scares the hell out of me.
I'll bet it
because
does.
I know where that took me. But he'll come home and talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
As where when I did it, it was a secret. I didn't talk about that with my mom and dad. It was my secret, and it grew to be a really big secret for the next 35 years.
Except it probably wasn't that secret after a little
No,
bit.
I thought it was a secret.
You know, and it's crazy. It's almost like there's the two different sides, you know, because there are ones that you don't talk to your parents about stuff. I mean, really, that there isn't. And I remember as my daughters were getting into the teenage years, you know, there was a few times I even told them, I'm like, look, you want to try alcohol, you want to try drugs, get them and bring them home. We'll sit down and we'll do them together. And I'm going to make sure you get sicker than hell. You know, that's what I was thinking of myself, but I would rather have the kids come home and do it with me than go off and experiment behind my back. You know, and I had a few friends that they were pissed off at me because I looked at it that way. That's just how I felt as a parent would be the safest way of doing it. Not saying we do things correctly as being parents, because it's just trial and error for all of us, basically.
We're all just doing the best we can.
The best that we can. And then there are ones who basically, I was just talking to a gal this past weekend that she was doing meth with her mom at age 14 because her mom was a meth addict. 14 years old.
Yeah, not a good idea.
No, definitely not a good idea. But again, that's kind of like where the addiction mind takes, because I'm sure if her mom was not on meth, her mom probably would have never, ever have thought of doing that, right?
Sure.
But in the depths of her addiction, she brings her child into it. So there's these two things. And again, there are a lot of things that as parents we feel doing our best. There's no blame here of what they think is best for their kids. But talking to our kids, I think, are one of the biggest things that we can do, is getting out there. You know, my daughter and her husband, they've already had the sex talk with our two granddaughters, and they're young, but they've had it, and they've let them know that the dangers that are out there as well. You know, our 8-year-old granddaughter looked at him and says, "Why are you telling us this stuff?" You know,
I don't want to hear
well,
this.
yeah, she doesn't want to hear it. But I'm so blessed and grateful that my daughter and her husband have stepped up to the plate to say, look, this is what's happening. This is what could happen. And this is what you need to watch out for. I think it's very important. You know, and my dad he didn't hold anything back. You know, especially when it came to like the sex stuff, man. When I hit puberty, man, he was all over it. He's like, I'll tell you what, this is what could happen. You want to be raising a kid at 15 years old? You know, and
Right.
I mean, he's scared the living shit out of me. It's like, no, I'm still I want to go out and have fun. I don't want to be raising a kid. But again, I think that it does need to be spoken about a lot more. You know, and you do see the commercials on TV. You know, you see the billboards on the side of the road.
I think that's
You
great.
know? Yeah, it's really good. It is
It's a
really
start.
good. It is a start. However, I do believe, too, it needs to start in our homes and in the schools as well, you know, to get these kids to just understand. Because there are a lot of kids, there's still a lot of bullying. My wife was bullied as a kid. And that was kind of the start, you know. Once she started having that taste of alcohol, it kind of took her down that road of, hey, you know, I don't feel like I'm a piece of crap.
This has given me a safe place.
It's given me a safe place,
Yep.
you know, and I don't think kids understand that when they're picking on someone else, they could be pushing that person into addiction, you know?
Right. And I don't think we understand as older guys the impact of bullying nowadays.
Yeah.
With the help of Facebook and other social media
yeah.
thing, my understanding is that it's just an awful environment, and you can do so much to damage someone's reputation.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, if somebody didn't like me, they'd, tell me so or something. But it wasn't broadcast all over social media everywhere, and they didn't write a bunch of lies about me that would be out there forever.
Yeah.
Now,
well, and they
it's
actually
totally
they
different.
actually had to do it to your face back then.
They don't have to now.
Now you can do it from the privacy of your own
Yeah.
room
And you can
destroy someone's life, and you don't even know that you're doing it because you're not
Yeah.
in front of them.
Yeah, so the bullying can work to hopefully well, not hopefully, but I mean, it can really harm somebody.
Yeah.
I think using those same tools, the social networking and stuff, social media can be used to help people too.
Oh, yeah,
I think we can do a lot, and in fact, that's what we're doing here a little bit, is to strengthen people so they can avoid some of those pitfalls. But
Yeah.
it's a different world. I feel sympathy for the kids nowadays. I don't think I understand what they're going through very much.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
it's
it
not-
is
That's for
different.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely way different from when we grew up. You know, our time was being outside as much as possible, riding our bikes or motorcycles or going in the mountains or fishing or playing in the canal ditches or doing whatever. It wasn't, I don't know, nothing ever crossed my mind as a kid that even someone that didn't like me or I didn't like them, thought never crossed my mind to start a rumor about them or to do anything I could to get back to them.
Right.
You know, and I was teased as a kid. You know, I was crippled. You know, I had the big platform shoe and the brace
really?
like the Forrest Gump. You know, I just didn't have them on both legs. I just had it on one. So I was teased and picked on quite a bit as a kid. And it's crazy how our mind works because I don't remember it. My dad said I used to come home from school crying sometimes. I don't ever remember it. You know, I guess my mind my subconscious just completely blocked it out. But yeah, nowadays it is taken to a whole different level of getting it out there in front of hundreds and hundreds of people just with one click.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's why I think whether it's we're talking about bullying or alcohol or drugs, you know, if we're talking about how we can help our kids, and that's kind of where this is going toward at the moment, is as a parent, a lot of the times we don't say anything because we're afraid that we're going to say the wrong thing. And I think the best thing to do is just be understanding and honest and do talk about it. You know, if you have a kid that's being bullied, if you have a kid that's thinking about alcohol, talk about it. You know, you might say the wrong thing, but just the fact that you're opening up that line of communication and you can talk about things is sending the message out to the youth that this is a safe place. I can talk to my mom, my dad, my uncle, my friend, and you have a source of support about those things. Doesn't mean you're always going to say the right thing, but just the fact that they feel comfortable with you talking about it is what's necessary to help them through it.
Oh, heck yeah. And that's huge. And I'm glad you said that, Rolf, because I remember a time I had the weekend with the daughters, went and picked them up. And on the way to our place, my oldest daughter goes, Dad, when we get home, there's something I want to talk to you about. I'm like, okay, where is this going? I think she was 14 at the time. And we get to my house, and we had a separate bedroom for him. And she goes, Dad, can we talk? And I'm like, yeah. So we go in the bedroom, and we shut the door. And she's telling me about this boy she's been dating for a long period of time, and they're in love at age 14, which we've all been there, you know. And she's like, I want to go on the pill. First, she goes, you told me, Dad, I could always come to you and tell you anything and you would never get mad, right? And I said, yes, Dad told you that. Because I was afraid. I was afraid of my dad. I did not want to go to my dad for anything because I was afraid of him. I didn't want my kids to feel afraid of me. So, yeah, I'm like, yes. And when she told me that, I was like, oh, my flipping hell. And she's like, you're not going to get mad, right? And I'm like, have you talked to your mom? Yeah, Mom got all upset with me. And I was like, oh, you know. And so I handled it the best way that I could. But I did not get upset. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Rolf, because if you do give your kids a safe place, because I would almost think that if I would have reacted the opposite way and I got all upset with my daughter, I think I probably would have pushed her in the direction that I did not want her to go. But by being able to sit and talk with her and say, look, I get it. I've been there. I've been that age too. I understand the hormones are going crazy, and I understand you're in love and this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know how much of an effect, but she waited. She waited quite a few years later. You know,
presented it in a way that she could listen to it.
Yeah. Instead of having her build that wall, you know, to protect herself.
Yeah.
By getting all upset. Yeah.
That says a lot about you, Al.
Oh, well, thank you.
You had a good relationship
Thank
there.
you.
You're reminding me of a story of my own when I received a report card back in the day when they mailed them to you, and I looked at that report card from junior high, I think it was in 8th grade or 9th grade, and it set the low bar for me. It was the lowest one I've ever had. And my father looked at that, and then he looked at me, and then he found a pack of matches and invited me to light that report card on fire, and just said to me, "We will not talk to your mother about this." Now, I don't know if I'd recommend that, but the relationship I had with my father was solidified at that point. I knew he was on my side, and I also figured out that I had to get better grades after that. He didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
But just having that trust, maybe he should have encouraged me to talk to my mother about that as well. But enough was said that I got the message. And
You knew he was in your camp.
I knew he was in my camp,
Yeah.
and I knew I better get better grades after that, and I did. Kind of worked out, but it was just funny how he handed me the matches, and that report card went up in smoke, and nothing more was said.
So I had my moment
Interesting.
like that
Huh.
just
I like
this
it.
last year with my son. You know, like you, Al. You said you can talk to me about anything.
Yeah.
If the time comes up, you can call, and I won't get mad, and we'll talk about it, and we'll deal with it. It was about 6 months ago. I live up in Camas, and so Heber is not far from us. My son had driven over to Heber with some friends. I knew they were going over there to get pizza. I knew they were there. It was great. We'll see you in a couple hours. About a half an hour went by, and he said, "Dad, you need to come get me." Okay, why? Well, one of the guys that we were with had some pot, and we smoked it, and I'm too high to drive home. I was like, oh, man. You know, immediately inside, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And so luckily I had the half an hour of time to drive over there to reflect on how I needed to react to this, to make it a point of discussion, but not get upset, to where if it ever happened again, he wouldn't call me.
Yeah.
And
Make
so,
a stupid choice, huh?
Yeah. So like you, I was lucky that I could reflect and say, I understand why you're wanting to smoke pot. You're at the age where that's interesting, and you did exactly what I have asked you to do, to call me, to make it safe, and I'll come get you. And when he sobered up, we talked about it.
Yeah.
And I think, like you, Mike, that was a moment where we connected, and he knows that I'm honest when I said, you can come and talk to me, and we'll work it out. And I would like to think that if that happens again, hopefully the outcome would be the same.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that relationship's important.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean you approve of every bad decision that somebody might make.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
knew that, and we discussed it thoroughly, without anger. It was just a discussion, you know. And I let him know that I understand what he was wanting to try, and you know, but we discussed it, and it was a good discussion.
Yeah.
It's with you guys bringing this stuff up, it's a flashback just happened for me, you know, and I just said that I was afraid to talk to my dad pretty much about anything. But I do remember this time. So me and a buddy of mine, we both worked at Smith's Food King, which is just Smith's now, but it was Smith's Food King at the time. And we were going to a drive-in movie. And so we had talked one of the cashiers into just letting them know we're going to come by, we're going to grab a 12-pack of beer, and we're going to stand in line, and you're going to ask for our ID, and we're going to show it to you, even though you know we're only 17 years old, you're going to let us buy it. So sure enough, worked perfectly. Well, someone that we went to school with happened to be there at Smith's. We didn't see him, and they saw that we went through. So they called the cops, and they watched what vehicle we were in, and we went from Smith's Food King parking lot on 70th South and Redwood Road, which is on the southwest side, and we went over to the northwest side. There was a 7-Eleven there to put gas in my buddy's truck before we went to the movies. So my buddy goes in, and he gets out of the truck, and he's wanting to put gas in, and that's when you had to go in and pay for it first, you know, and so he goes in and pays for it, and I'm like, I'm starting early. Popped one open and took a couple sips, and I'm sitting there, and buddy comes back out, and he's trying to get the gas pump, and he's like, what the hell's going on? And he's looking back in the store, and he's like, come on, I've already paid for the gas. And next thing I know, my buddy's like, hide the beer. And I'm like, why? And the clerk from 7-Eleven's walking. I'm like, what the hell's she going to do? And next thing I look down, I'm like, the hell's a light shining on my beer? And I looked over, and there was a cop, and he had his flashlight sitting right on my beer. And I'm like, the hell did you come from? So he's like, roll down the window. So I roll down the window, and he goes, having a beverage, are you? And I said, yes, sir, I am. He goes, will you step out of the vehicle? Well, luckily, we grew up in West Jordan. We had a relationship with some of the cops, which was kind of cool. And anyway, long story short is they ended up finding the rest of the beer. The cop was really cool. He's like, man, this is driving me crazy having to pour this thing out. And he's pouring it out, and he goes, so your buddy's 18. He goes, he's probably going to get a ticket and probably have to go to court. He says, you're 17. And he said, we probably should call your parents. And I'm thinking, oh, flipping great. And he goes, is there a particular parent you would like us to speak with? And I'm like, yeah, my dad. Not my mom, my dad, because my dad drank beer. I knew my dad would understand because he told me all the stories of him and his buddy drinking beer, doing the same thing. So it's crazy because I wouldn't go to my dad for a lot of things, but for that one, it's like, yeah, if you call my parents, just ask for George. Ask for Diane, because I should be able to escape through this, under the radar. And luckily they didn't call my parents. But yeah, my buddy did get a ticket. He had to go to court and all that fun stuff, which he was in some deep crap for a while. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy again how important it is to be able to go to our parents and talk to them about different things and not being afraid. And not all of us, not all kids have that opportunity.
No, a lot don't, for sure.
A lot of kids don't. They don't have a very good home life.
And that's where I think it's nice that we do these public service things and the announcements on the radio about talk to your kids about alcohol or whatever. But that's kind of a backup plan, in my view. The best plan is to have a functioning family where these things can be discussed.
Yeah.
But as
Certainly
I say that,
helps.
I realize it doesn't happen all that as
It's not
often
always
as it
realistic.
should.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and really, what is a functional family anymore? To be honest with you, a lot of that stuff has gone away.
Yeah. You can have a functioning family and not have a traditional family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you really can. I mean, because it was a normal thing for us, and I'm sure it was for you guys growing up. Dinner time, we all sat down at the table together.
Yeah.
A lot of times we were watching Happy Days or Laverne and Shirley or something, watching a TV program.
Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island or Hee Haw.
Had to be off.
Yeah, for dinner.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that is really good. Yeah.
Well, and then in my own house, now that I'm the adult, we go out and sit on the couch and watch TV while we eat dinner, and that's how we've done it 99% of the time. So I guess I didn't learn anything.
Yeah, because that, and again, I think the family time is very important. It builds that relationship, and I tip my hat off again to my daughter and her husband, because my ex-wife and I we're friends, and we've talked, and she's like, we should have been doing this too, and I'm like, yeah, we should have. Mm-hmm. But our lives were different. It was a different, we looked at things differently, and I believe our daughter learned from us and said, hey, I'm not going to do this when I have a family. Just like there's certain things I picked that I thought was good values. Not saying my parents ever taught me bad values, because they didn't, but just pick things that I'm like, I'm going to take this when I become a parent, and I'm going to use this. Nah, I don't want anything to frickin' do with this. This is bull crap.
Totally.
I'm going to make a change. And so I really do believe that. And also with his family, my son-in-law came from a very good family too, and learned a lot of things. And he had his time dabbling in the partying scene and all that fun stuff, and learned a lot. So. But yeah, for our listeners, again, if you got your kids out there, again, I'm not saying how to be a parent, because which one of us really know how to be a parent? We do the best that we can.
For
and,
sure.
But I really do believe that the relationship with our kids is very important, and have that trust, somebody that they can go to.
Yeah, the thought I have is if you want the expert on parenting, it's the person who has not yet become a parent.
Ah.
They can tell you.
They can tell you.
But
Yeah.
once they get there themselves, they learn that it's not necessarily so.
We have someone in the studio going, yeah, see right here. Well, and with you saying that, that's kind of like me understanding addiction when I've not stepped in those shoes, It's like my wife told me one time before when I picked her up for a weekend pass. She's like, for once, I wish you'd be my damn husband instead of my damn therapist.
Yeah.
Because I was a good therapist. I didn't have that certificate on my wall, but in my eyes, I was a damn good therapist. However, everything everything I tried for years didn't work. Yeah, I actually had one of her therapists who she was working with one time ask me, so how did it turn out for you? It didn't turn out worth a shit. I kept trying the same thing over and over and over with the same results over and over. So yeah, it didn't work
Funny
out.
how that works.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Rolf, is there anywhere else you'd like to take this conversation, this open range? Because I've really enjoyed the topics that we've talked about today and where a lot of this has gone.
It's funny that you'd ask that, because obviously knowing that I was coming on your show, kind of roll back through the Rolodex of things that I feel are important to share and talk about. And I really feel like we've covered most of the things that from my story are important to talk about and share today. So I feel like it's been a really comfortable, natural show, and we've expressed upon some good things, and hopefully your listeners and viewers have been able to take something from what we've shared. But I feel like we've had a good conversation amongst the three of us today.
Yeah, I do too. Mike, what about yourself? Dr. Mike. I better put Dr. Mike in there.
It's fine either way. No, I've enjoyed the conversation, and I don't know that we have a lot of simple answers to this or easy answers. I think, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, life can throw us some challenges. So we've talked about this before. Some people are more vulnerable to struggles with addiction than are others.
Yeah.
We're not all put together the same genetically or socially or environmentally. I think it is important that we develop a kindness as we approach other people. I think it's okay to make some judgments. We all need to make some judgments in our lives. But I think when we look at each other, unless you've walked in my shoes, you can't really understand my life, and I can't really understand your life or your life unless I've walked in your shoes. But I can lend you a hand. I can try to lift you up if I have the chance to do that. And I think that's my responsibility. That's all of our responsibility in life, is to lift where we can.
Yeah.
And be cautious and judicious with your judgments of others. Because people come from a different background and they have different vulnerabilities. And if you feel like you're on solid ground, it's okay to lift. It's also, like you've said, Al, maybe your style of lifting, you need to lift with some humility too, understanding that maybe you are not the expert that you think you are at times. And it's okay to be encouraging, but recognize the limits of your own expertise, I guess.
Yeah, not allow our egos to step in. I'll just admit it right here. That's what a lot of my therapy was for my wife, was my ego. Going, I'm not the one with the problem here. You are.
Yeah.
This is how you deal with it, because this is how I would deal with it. Yeah. And I knew some of her pain. I knew a lot of the bad relationships that she had gone through. I knew about her being bullied as a child, and from friends and siblings and things like that. But I never knew the whole depth of it. And I'm glad that you said that. Be cautious with your judgment.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, a lot of the guests that have been on this show, holy cow, man! If I went through what they went through, I would have been sitting in the same gutter that they were sitting in years ago.
Definitely.
I also would just add that I think there's certainly a role for you to play as a husband or father and it's not the same as being a therapist. And I think there are times where having other people involved, other professional people, or having a group or a deal like the 12-step program or AA or something, where that's an important part of the puzzle to provide the environment where somebody can really heal. I think sometimes spouses try to be each other's therapist, and that can get problematic sometimes.
Oh, yeah, it does.
So
Yeah.
I would suggest caution with that approach.
Yeah, I've wore the suit and tie.
Yeah.
Had her lay on the couch with my notepad.
Yeah.
It doesn't work worth a
Well,
shit.
you've got the goatee going, so
Yeah, definitely doesn't work. That's for doggone sure. And you know, it's crazy too, because I tell you what, man, literally she kicked me right in the crotch when she said that, and I'm like, oh, that one hurt. Did I get it? No. It's like, brush it right off. Yeah, but still, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You know, I've even told her therapist when she even told me, she's like, there's nothing you can do to help her. And I'm like, yeah, bullshit. You watch me.
yeah.
You watch me.
Right.
I'll get her taken care of.
Yeah.
I'll get this to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were doing your
force
part,
it.
but
Yeah, just the wrong way.
Right.
You know, and that was another reason for starting this show, is to get people to understand the pain it causes everyone. You know, the addiction, when they say it's a family disease, man, it is 100% true. It's a family disease. It affects everyone.
Yes, it does.
You know, and it's just sad where things can go. I was talking to Mason before you guys even came in, and you know, my wife and I, we just went to a viewing of a friend of ours who just lost her son to an overdose. You know, and it's just to see the pain in her face. You know, he was 28 years old and still her child.
yeah.
You know, I'm almost 60 and my mom still treats me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still her child.
You still
You
are.
know, and it's so hard. It's extremely hard, and for us who are on the other side, who we don't get it, we don't understand the grasp, you know, that it has on us, and we said it at the beginning of the show. Addiction doesn't discriminate. You know, I've talked to people who came from extremely wealthy families, you know, and fell into the addiction where they lost everything. Spoke with a guy in St. George at the restaurant that we were at, you know, and he's mentioned, you know, he's asked me not to share the name or anything like that, but, you know, the guy was worth millions, had his house up in Park City and all kinds of cars, and had his plane and traveling all over, and he was a top well-known chef up at one of the restaurants up there, and he says, by the time my addiction was done and over, I was sleeping in the back of a Jeep Cherokee. Lost it all. Family, everything. And he says, and it happened like that.
Wow.
Like that. You know, now he's built his life back, and he's got his life back on track and doing well, and very, very grateful for the experience that he had. But he's, like you said, you know, you're grateful that you were an alcoholic.
Yeah, you go down that road, and what you get from an experience like that, more than anything else, is peace.
Yeah.
You know, when you're struggling with addiction, there's no peace there. There isn't. It's chaos.
Yeah, it is chaos.
So to be able to just have the peace, that's what allows you to be comfortable to be in your own skin and live your life. You be comfortable to be you again.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about getting to the other side of addiction,
Yeah.
as it were. But you know, if you're somebody that is watching or listening to this, and you're struggling with those things, know that you deserve peace and you deserve to be happy. And reach out. We talked today about being honest with people. Sometimes it starts with just a friend or a loved one, but that's why organizations exist. That's why we're here right now, is to give strength to those that are in need, because it hurts like nothing does when you're at the bottom of the barrel and you can't find a way out.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad that you said that about liking yourself, because every single one of our guests, who have battled addiction and have been on this show, has talked about one of the huge couple things that helped them in their recovery was, first, knowing that they couldn't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
They had to believe in something greater than them. And secondly is they learned how to love themselves. And once they learned how to love themselves, and of course they gave their life up to whatever their higher power was, whether it's God, the universe, a mountain, a goldfish, or whatever it may be, that's when life started changing for them. And I really do believe all of us need to fall into that, even if we're not battling. Well, I think we all have some type of addiction, all of us, in one way or another, but to be able to love ourselves, love who we are as an individual, again, we let the outside world get to us, I think, too much. Dr. Mike, about, how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to be, and, we got to be like the Joneses, or this is how I have to handle myself, and, be who you are and love who you are. I think it was Robin Williams was on Johnny Carson years ago, and it was back when Robin Williams was in the depth of, because he was addicted to cocaine, really, really heavy. Matter of fact, he had just left John Belushi's house and was only gone for 2 hours when he heard the news that John Belushi overdosed on cocaine, and they were all partying. But wow. I think Johnny Carson asked Robin Williams something about cocaine. He says, it brings out your true personality, and have a lot of fun. And I think Johnny says, well, what if you're an asshole? So, if that's your true personality, right? Yeah.
You don't want to expose that.
You don't want to expose that. So I found that to be pretty funny. But
you're really dating the three of us by talking about
I know,
Johnny
right?
Carson
Johnny
show.
Carson. I was just watching a few clips on that.
Come back.
Yeah, we were just talking about that on the job site not too long ago. If you got, there was a time when Robin Williams and Jonathan Withers was both on Johnny Carson, and Jonathan Withers was Robin Williams' idol. And there will never be another Robin Williams in my eyes. The guy was just so flippin' incredible. It's
genius.
Yeah, and then I was watching one with Dean Martin on Johnny Carson. That one was hilarious. Dean Martin was
speaking of addiction, and
talking about like he was drunk, and I don't know if he was drunk, but he sure was acting drunk. But it was funny. I was good humor, laughing my ass off. But again, we're laughing at a guy who, and really, Dean Martin wasn't the guy that was really the true alcoholic. It was Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra is the guy that was the huge drinker. But Dean Martin always portrayed it right. He always had the drink in his hand and the cigarette, and that was his thing. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So crazy stuff. All right, guys. Anything else before we sign off? I think this has been an awesome show.
I do too. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Thank you for.
Good to get to know you, Rolf.
Yeah. Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you for being vulnerable enough to come in, and it's not easy for people to come on a show and share a part of their life that was dark and not so bright, but also to share where life is at for them now, and how much better it is for them now. Because
way to go.
Addiction does create nothing but chaos.
Sure does.
All around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just get on that hamster wheel and just keep going through the same motion over and over and over. So, yeah.
Thanks, Al. Good
Absolutely.
job with this.
Thank you.
You're helping people. So
great
keep
show.
it up.
Hope so. So, guys, there's another show. Before we sign off, again, thank you to all our listeners, all our many sponsors, Resilience Talk Network, Brad Neufeld. Again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for any of you guys. And if you know someone, again, who would be interested in being a sponsor, reach out to us, let us know, because it really helps us get out there to reach more people, so we would be very grateful. And again, if you guys know someone who would be interested in hearing one of our shows, when you see one, just share it with one person. Just share it with one person, ask them to subscribe, ask them to like, because you never know what that one show might do to help someone, whether it's with the person that you share it with or whether it's someone that the person you share it with may know, So help us get this word out and help others, because that's the whole purpose. We want to get rid of the stigma, and we just want people to look at addiction in a different way. And the wheel is slowly starting to turn in the right direction. So. It really is. And I'm actually grateful, kind of like what Rolf said earlier, grateful that he was an alcoholic. sounds crazy, but I'm actually grateful that my wife was an alcoholic, because it's put me in a whole different realm. And I'm very blessed and grateful to be in this seat and be able to do this show and go to a lot of the events that we're going to. We're getting to go to quite a few events with recovery, and it's pretty cool. I'm getting to know a lot of amazing people, and a lot of these people have been guests on the show. So again, thank you to all of you. I greatly appreciate it. We'll leave you with this as we do every week. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.